enjoy this next video with me. Welcome today to the shop. Let's talk axe handles. What do you need to know to pick out a good axe handle? Come on down here on the bench, let me show you. Now here are a bunch of axe handles. Some of them I have made, some of them I have purchased, some of them I have refurbished. They're very, very old. So let's look at what it is that we want to identify as a good axe handle. When you're going into a store and wanting to buy one, let's look first of all at the characteristics that we're looking for. This one here is a good example, except that I made it, but it has and contains all of the characteristics that I want. If you look at that grain orientation, it's straight up and down. Not only that, if you look very carefully, you can take and follow the grain all the way from the butt all the way up here to the handle, to the eye. Now in some cases this may waver a little bit on some axes, but according to the Forest Service, that is what is most important, that the grain goes from the butt up through to the eye. So this grain orientation here, according to the Forest Service, is not necessary, but what I want you to recognize is that is usually what I check first, and it makes for the strongest handle. Then also, the one other thing that I want to note is the shape. If you will look just how much wider this pommel, this butt is, than the handle, and how that tapers down, it is extremely large, and that makes for a very good grip. I like the curve of this one, came out perfectly. I like that little bit of an upsweep right there. Nice curve down here, almost makes a slight pistol grip, but you bring that in, you can hold that tight. And so what's hard to find nowadays is that nice wide palm swell. So shape is the one thing that you need to look at, and then grain orientation. Let me bring you down here and let me show you some of the other grain orientation that we have. Okay, you can see a variety of the axe handles that I have here. This one here and this one here, both were from projects that I had done, and that we kept the old handles, and you can see just how nicely shaped those are. That grain orientation there is perfect. That handle was selected by somebody who knew what they were doing. This grain orientation here is really good. You can see this one's not completely straight vertical, but it's acceptable. This one here is even not very vertical, but according to the Forest Service, that is acceptable. This is the one that I made. And then you have this one here I also made, but it is a straight handle, and you still have a nice large palm swell here. Grain orientation is still pretty good, and yet if you'll look, this grain orientation here, you can see how it comes clear down here, around and over, but it still goes through the eye. So it's still quite acceptable. Now, this one here is one that I purchased. You can see that the grain orientation is about a 45-degree angle. That is still acceptable by the Forest Service standards. If you will look, you can see that the grain runs all the way. It looks like it's got some poor grain here, but if you follow this down, that grain runs all the way through to the eye. So these are just some things to consider. This still has a little bit of a palm swell, although it's not as much as I like. I like to have a greater palm swell than these do, and that's why when I make them pretty large. And what's really neat is the older tools back in the early 60s and even 50s and 40s and beyond. They made some nice big palm swells, and so those are nice. Now I want to show you what is very unacceptable. Nowadays, I went and bought this at the hardware store, the big box store. First thing you'll notice is they take one board and they cut the whole thing out of one board. It is the same thickness all the way from here, all the way through the handle. Another thing I want to note when you're looking at a handle and its shape, that you want this part right here, this neck, to be thicker than this handle, because that sometimes if you have overstrikes or you hit your board, hit something here, you want that to be good and strong. So you got to be kind of careful of that. But in this one here, it's all the same size all the way through. To me, that is completely unacceptable. Now, if you will look at this grain orientation, the grain orientation isn't too bad right there. But there's something else that you need to note when you're looking for handles to buy, and that's something that's called runoff or run out. If you will notice where this grain starts right here, and you will follow this around, you will follow it all the way to right there. So this grain right here goes from here to here. It doesn't run all the way up through the handle. You've got run out, and that makes for a very weak handle. So when you're looking at a handle at a box store and you see that, do not get it. It's not worth it. The sad thing is, for this video, I purchased this handle for $20, and it is completely unacceptable. Grain orientation doesn't look too bad, except that the run out is so bad. So none of this was taken care of. The shape is bad, the grain is bad, everything about it is bad. Now, it's a hickory handle, but it's still unacceptable. So thanks so much for watching this video. I hope that was useful and helpful information. Make sure that you pay close attention when you're choosing an axe handle, so that you don't end up with something that's so inferior it's not going to give you good service. Now let's put this back up on the wall where it belongs. Have a great day, and God bless.